You're listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, the place to learn about new technology and technological advances before they become mainstream. This podcast is sponsored by Ingram Micro's Imagine Next. It's not about the destination. It's about going someplace you never thought possible. Go to imaginenext.ingrammicro.com to find out more. Let's get into it.
Welcome to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro. I'm your host, Keri Roberts, and my guest today is Jim Potts, a senior systems engineer at VMware. Welcome, Jim. Thank you for being here today.
Hi, Keri. Thanks for having us today.
So VMware's principal engineer, Beda, had a saying, and he said that cloud isn't where you operate, it's how you operate. What does that mean, and how many companies are actually operating on the cloud today?
So, today industry analysts, within 2020 expect the total addressable market of cloud technologies to be north of $250 billion. So it's really more of, which companies are not leveraging some type of cloud technology versus which ones that are. Companies large and small leverage the cloud, whether they really realize they're leveraging it or not. And really today it's a matter of how do you optimize your infrastructure and how do you optimize your use of the public cloud to really be successful and kind of get the business outcomes that you're looking for.
And your company suggests that the definition of an application has changed. How so, and what are the modern challenges for developers and business leaders today?
So that's a great question. I think it's more of how we've kind of evolved applications. So applications, yes, today are being built differently than they were in previous revs. We look at some of the challenges being as new and modern applications, as we're calling them today, are built with a model around containers and microservices. So instead of one large application that within that application has a lot of moving parts and pieces that we're forced to upgrade all at once, we're building applications in segments, or these things called containers. So what that allows us to do is make very rapid small feature enhancements or small improvements on the fly without having to take down the entire application and make large rev updates all at once. What that really presents as a challenge is that since we're developing these applications differently, those applications need different and more elastic infrastructure they can sit on top of. So providing that consistent elastic infrastructure can be a challenge. That's sometimes where we look to the public cloud, but that's where we also have to look to how do we put these applications back on premise if we decide that's where they want to go. Some of the additional challenges, though, for just IT in general is to how do we continue to operate and leverage legacy applications right alongside these new modern apps. And oftentimes that can kind of create a silo. We've got, okay, here's the infrastructure that we run our older applications on, and here's the silo that we run our newer applications on. So anytime you have those silos within IT, that creates inherent business challenges. So what we're trying to do from a VMware standpoint is break those barriers down and create one consistent platform where we can still continue to manage, maintain, deploy legacy virtual machines and applications right alongside these new modern apps.
So what would you say an ideal solution would look like then?
I think the ideal solution is really whatever helps achieve the business outcome that you're looking for. It's not something where, hey, as VMware, we give you this rubber stamp and say, okay, go ahead, use that stamp and that's going to be perfect for everybody across the industry. I think what's unique about our platform is that it allows you the freedom and flexibility to say, okay, we're going to continue with the traditional virtual machine model today, but we see this modern application framework kind of, coming down the gamut or the gauntlet, and we want to be prepared for that. What we also potentially want to be prepared for is as we transition things from on-premise out into the public cloud, and maybe from the public cloud back into on-premise, we, again, want that platform that allows us that freedom and flexibility of choice. So I think that's what's really ideal about leveraging VMware is it's very flexible and allows you to not only decide where you want to be today, but also gives you the flexibility to move to a different area tomorrow without having to do a large infrastructure change or forklift upgrade.
Now, before you share with us a solution you have called vSphere 7 and how it works with Kubernetes, I'd love for you to tell us, for those that don't know, what Kubernetes is And just a little tidbit as well. It was founded by Joe Beda, who we mentioned earlier, along with a few others when they worked at Google back in 2014. So I'd love for you to tell us more about what it is.
Sure. So earlier we were referencing this idea of modern applications and how we're building modern applications differently. If we were to think back when we were to think of a more legacy or traditional application, it was this large kind of monolithic thing. Inside that application, there was a lot of different moving parts and pieces. So when we wanted to do an upgrade, we had to upgrade the entire thing and was a very large process. Now we've transitioned to this idea of saying, okay, well, we're going to build applications with these little microservices and these little containers, and then we're going to put everything together at the end. And that way, when we have to make a change or an upgrade or an improvement, we can just upgrade that small part. Well, that's great. However, part of the potential complexity or learning curve in doing that is instead of just one large application where all those parts are contained within it, now you have all these different moving parts and pieces that you need to kind of put together, kind of like Legos, to make this application. So what Kubernetes does for us is it says, okay, I'm going to be the intelligence behind how you quickly deploy, manage, maintain these small containers. And that way, if we need to scale them up quickly, Kubernetes can do that for you and scale them down in the same fashion, but also keep track of those different pods of containers that you've deployed across the infrastructure. And that infrastructure can be on-premise, that infrastructure can be in the public cloud. But Kubernetes is really our way to deploy, manage, maintain containers at scale. And the benefit of it being on the Google platform is it's really kind of universal regardless of the infrastructure that you're sitting on. So that's why it's kind of become the de facto standard for how folks are deploying Kubernetes, deploying containers at scale.
And as we were saying earlier, vSphere 7 works with Kubernetes. And in your mini playbook you have online, you mentioned that customers receive a 403% return on investment over a 3-year period and 84% less unplanned downtime. Can you share with us what vSphere 7 is and how does it drive business value with IT optimization, especially for the SMB market?
Sure. So I guess kind of just breaking that down into a couple different areas. So first of all, when we talk about vSphere 7 with Kubernetes, from a VMware standpoint, we've certainly seen the pervasiveness and the large adoption rate of Kubernetes in general. So what we've done is we've really baked that into vSphere 7. We have not bought Kubernetes. This is still the open source Kubernetes that folks are leveraging today. What we're really doing by baking it in kind of to vSphere 7 and creating that tight integration is saying, okay, as you potentially move to this new way of deploying applications, we're going to be right there with you as the best platform to do that by having these tight integrations with the best way to deploy containers at scale. So still the same Kubernetes that people know and love. It's just really baked into vSphere 7 so we can help provide that consistency of experience anytime you deploy vSphere and VMware Cloud Foundation. So that's kind of the why vSphere and Kubernetes. The other part to think about is, okay, so vSphere 7, right? What is it? Why is it important to me? So vSphere 7 is one of, if not the largest major releases that VMware's had in quite a while. So certainly vSphere is known as the Kleenex brand of hypervisors across the industry. We have made a lot of large improvements within vSphere 7. So when you're talking about numbers about ROI and decreasing downtime, that is really just some of the benefits that you can hope to see with vSphere 7. We've made improvements to our integration with our software-defined storage platform, vSAN. We have made improvements into things like distributed resource scheduling, how we create that elastic cloud-like infrastructure on-premise. We have made improvements as to how we allow you to transition workloads from on-premise in vSphere 7 into other solutions of ours in the public cloud like VMC on AWS. So it's not just about the individual feature enhancements within vSphere 7. It's really about how we've continued to leverage that as the hypervisor of choice in the industry and make large improvements to solidify the relationship that our customers have, with the hypervisor platform that they're on. As it relates to the SMB, I think there are certain technologies in VMware, certainly the idea around modern apps and containers, that are a little bit beyond, what the SMB is probably leveraging today. Containers absolutely work in infrastructures large and small. I think if you look to the who on average is leveraging, containers at scale, it probably is mid-market and up. However, the benefits of our smaller customers being on vSphere 7 is that, like anything else, technologies that are widely used in the enterprise and move down to the mid-market also eventually move into that SMB space. So we're giving our SMB customers a way to future-proof that environment that they're on today. So if they want to continue to operate in that traditional virtual machine model, absolutely can continue to do that in vSphere 7 for a very, very long time. If they want to slowly chip away at the idea of using the public cloud or creating a hybrid cloud, that platform can take them there. If the application that they run their business on today comes out with the next rev or 2 revs from now and it's a container-based model, they'll already be on vSphere 7, which will allow them to quickly and easily deploy that same application that they've been using, but in that new framework that application manufacturer might be leveraging.
What is considered an SMB? Like, what's the size of a company for it to be an SMB?
That's a great question. I don't know, depending on certainly even who you talk to within VMware, there's varying degrees on, is it number of seats? Is it revenue? Is it size of infrastructure? So there isn't really a hard and fast rule for, okay, you're this size company and, you're in this bucket here, or this is what makes you mid-market. I think there are companies that have 10 employees that could be considered mid-market. And I think there are companies that have 800 employees that can maybe be considered SMB based on the type of infrastructure that they run. So there isn't a hard and fast rule. I think it's the types of technology that you're leveraging and the degree of scale and capacity that you're leveraging them at that helps you, kind of decide, are you SMB, mid-market, and enterprise? And at the end of the day, from a VMware standpoint, it doesn't really matter to us, because if you are the smallest SMB or the largest Fortune 100 company out there and you deploy vSphere 7, the bits and bytes that you deploy from VMware are exactly the same. So there's no SMB version of vSphere 7 or an enterprise version per se of vSphere 7. It's all the exact same vSphere that you deploy regardless.
The one question we ask all of our guests on this show, and it can pertain to what we're talking about or in general, is where do you see technology going within the next year?
So what's interesting about that question is if you had asked me that, 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, I probably would have given you a different answer that said, we're seeing a lot more adoption of infrastructure cloud technologies. We're seeing this large shift to modern applications. And while I think that is absolutely still true and relevant, I think based on the current climate we're in, we're seeing a lot more on business continuity as it relates to supporting a remote workforce. So from a VMware perspective, outside of vSphere 7 and what you think of us for as the traditional hypervisor, we have an entire end user computing digital workspace portfolio that really helps enable and support a remote workforce. So I think that is something that you're going to hear a lot more about over the remainder of the year is, okay, we've been asked to quickly transition into work from home, remote workforce. What are some of the predominant best technologies that we can leverage to allow us to do that? And VMware is absolutely at the forefront of that. So a benefit of the VMware platform is this is not a new solution for us. We've created a very robust end user computing and digital workspace platform over years and years and years. So this is a tried and true solution that VMware is able to offer our customers right now to help enable and strengthen their remote workforce.
Now, where can people learn more about what we talked about or connect with you if they have questions, especially if they're not sure if they're an SMB or what they should be kind of doing at this point? Where's the best place to do that?
So there's a lot of resources out there. I would say the best bet for partners that are looking to learn more about that is to leverage your VMware team at Ingram Micro. Very strong partnership between Ingram and VMware. We've built a very robust team within Ingram Micro specific to VMware's business that are really designed to understand the market that you're in and help enable you and be successful in that. So absolutely would encourage you to reach out to your Ingram Micro sales rep and then specifically within Ingram, the VMware team.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jim, for sharing your insight and knowledge with us today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
If you like this episode or have a question, join the discussion on Twitter at Ingram TechSoul with the hashtag B2B Tech Talk. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro.
You've been listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, hosted by Keri Roberts. This episode was sponsored by Ingram Micro's Imagine Next. B2B Tech Talk is a joint production with Sweetfish Media and Ingram Micro. Ingram Micro production handled by Laura Burton and Christine Fan. To not miss an episode, subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform.